Hey, welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about. My name is Matt.
And my name's Dylan.
Today, we're going to be predicting all of the guilds, except for the Screen Actors Guild Awards. That's going to be a separate video.
They're special.
But for
They're
this
special.
episode, we're going to be predicting the Directors Guild, the Producers Guild, the Visual Effects Society, and many others that I'm not going to list, because we're going to go over all of them through the video. But before we get into that, make sure you like this video, make sure you comment, leave your thoughts. Are we idiots? Let us know in those comments down below. But let's get right into it. While we do this, what we're also going to do is we're going to analyze how likely it is that the award is going to predict the eventual winner at the Oscars. So I've gone through the past 10 years at every single one of these guilds and given us a percentage of how many times this award is going to pan out with the winner. So let's start off with the Makeup and Hairstyling Guild. Instead of getting down too much into what is going to win this, because by the time this video releases, that is going to be old knowledge. And let's just talk about the likelihood that this has of correlating. So over the past 9 years, 8 out of 9 of those years, the winner in any category here has gone on to win the Oscar. So there are multiple different categories. There's contemporary hairstyling, contemporary makeup. Both of those have only had one winner come from them, which was Bombshell. Then there's the period hair category, which has had 2 winners come from it. And then there is the big boy. This is the one that most of the time, actually 7 out of 9 of the last years, this has been the winner. So period makeup. It's period or character makeup, because it also covers some sci-fi, some fantasy. But this award has gone to Ma Rainey. It's gone to Vice, Darkest Hour, Suicide Squad, Mad Max Fury Road, Grand Budapest Hotel, and Dallas Buyers Club. So we can see there, that's 7 winners in that one category. We can kind of extrapolate that whatever wins in that category is likely to take the Oscar. Now, what's nominated in that category this year? I think we can say that this race pretty solidly comes down to Elvis versus The Whale. The Whale is not nominated there. The Whale is only nominated in special effects makeup. So Elvis is nominated there. Elvis will probably win there. And that's why it's probably going to move and win the Oscar off of the back of this. So this one has like a very good likelihood of predicting the Oscar. But we're going to go to one that has a little bit less likelihood of predicting the Oscar. And that's the Visual Effects Society. Now, Visual Effects Society, this one is announced on February 15th. There's a lot of categories here. Like a lot of categories. The only one that we care about for the purposes of this race this year is Best Visual Effects in a Photoreal Feature. Now, this award has a 40% chance of overlapping. It's only overlapped 4 times in the past decade. It missed in 2020, 2019, 2018, 2017, 2015, and 2014.
A lot of times.
It's missed a lot of times. But that said, this is the year of Avatar: The Way of Water. And I think we can both admit that when our lineup right here is Avatar versus Fantastic Beasts, Jurassic World, The Batman, and Top Gun Maverick, Avatar is going to get more votes for VFX than the rest of those combined.
Avatar is the 40% there that does win, because this is just such a sweeper. Like, some of the movies you mentioned there aren't like sweepers in the categories. Like Ex Machina was a surprise. Tenet was a movie that was just very divisive, and just people didn't really want to seem to give that awards. Warner Brothers was also just not pushing it. And 1917 is a movie, when you look at it, you don't think visual effects. You look at Avatar, you think of visual effects. And the other nominees that are just in this category, you don't really think of that. And then if you look at the Oscar, there's no other real movie that's really shining like, hey, give me visual effects wins.
The only thing this can go to is Avatar. So yes, this has a 40% correlation, but it will correlate this year, guaranteed. Now let's go on to the Directors Guild Awards. These are happening on February 18th. And this one is actually pretty good. There is an 80% correlation here. In the past decade, the only 2 times that the Directors Guild has picked someone that didn't pan out at the Oscars was Sam Mendes in 2019 and Ben Affleck in 2012. And Ben Affleck wasn't nominated at the Oscars. And we could say that he probably would have won that award if he was nominated. So really the only time we haven't had the overlap is Sam Mendes. let's just break down who is in this category this year. So we've got the Daniels for Everything Ever All at Once. We have Joseph Kosinski for Top Gun Maverick. Martin McDonagh for The Banshees of Inisherin. We have Steven Spielberg for The Fabelmans. And we've got Todd Field for Tar.
So you say 80%, and 80% sounds pretty confident that I should go with a frontrunner. However, people have been saying all season, like, Spielberg's going to win the Oscar, he's going to win the Oscar, and it doesn't really look like that to me. And then you have to look, hey, who is going to win the Oscar? And most of the signs point to the Daniels. That the Daniels are going to win here, they're going to win at BAFTA, and winning both of those then should give you the Oscar. However, can you really see an Everything Everywhere sweep where it takes picture, director, screenplay, supporting actor, and maybe even lead actress? That's almost 5 above-the-line Oscar wins. That just doesn't happen nowadays. So that has me thinking, who could be a possible upset director? Because McDonagh, his movie is number 2 and number 3 in picture, but that's not a director's movie. And our other directing nominees that I haven't mentioned are Ruben Östlund, who does not show up here at DGA, but the one who does, and who I also think will upset at BAFTA, is Todd Field. Just, do I think he's going to win at DGA? Because I think Todd Field wins the BAFTA. I'm very confident in that right now. I know that's kind of an out there pick. Like, the signs point to it's going to be Berger, it's going to be Daniels, it could even be McDonagh. Just Field feels like a BAFTA pick, and because Spielberg's not there, so that comes down to here: does DGA just go Spielberg and make it easy, or do they go off the path and do they go with Daniels or they go with Field? Because I think whoever wins here will probably win the Oscar. I don't think the BAFTA matters here, so I'm leaning Field here at DGA. However, I am not very confident in the DGA pick as I am confident in the BAFTA pick. See, I would agree until a lot of places have started to give this cinematography, and that's a category that very often does have some overlap with director. And Tar overperformed an Oscar nomination morning. It got essentially everything it could have, outside of maybe a supporting actress, but still, Nina Hoss was a very far reach. I would be showing like, hey, Tar is like number 1 or number 2 if they were putting Nina Hoss in. So to me, Tar is very strong. Tar is probably like, if this was a year 5, Tar is in that 5. And I don't know, I just feel like the passion for Tar, it's not going to carry over to original screenplay unless we see a massive upset. Blanchett seems pretty obvious, so it could reach out somewhere else. And Todd Field's kind of the guy who put this all together. Like I said, Daniel still make the most sense, but if you want to be kind of wild and go against that 20%, Field makes more sense to me than Spielberg.
I'm really torn here because that makes me, I feel like Daniels are winning the Oscar. My gut is telling me to predict Spielberg here, but my brain is telling me Daniels, because if I think that Daniels are taking the Oscar, then I kind of have to go with them here. I don't know, man.
I think
really
if you're
stuck.
predicting Daniels to win the Oscar, they have to win BAFTA. I think they can lose this.
I disagree.
And win BAFTA.
I think that they could win this, and Edward Berger can win BAFTA.
I don't buy. I know All Quiet got all those BAFTA noms, but I don't buy them giving him the win. That's the thing. I feel like Field is so much stronger than Berger is at BAFTA. However, that's something we'll get into in our BAFTA predictions in an upcoming week. We can dive deeper into that. But for today, with DGA, I'm not confident in it. I'm going Field here.
I'm going to go Daniels.
I think I'm just going to predict the upset.
After this, we're going to get right into the documentary category at the DGA. Now, this one has a 40% accuracy rate. In the past decade, the only overlap we've seen has been with American Factory, with O.J. Made in America, with Laura Poitras, Citizen of 4, and as well Searching for Sugar Man. Otherwise, 60% of the time, 6 out of 10 of the past years, the DGA have predicted wrong. Documentary category is tricky because you'll find that a lot of the time when we go to these guilds, they're not right most of the time. And when they are right, they're rarely right together, so they're always all over the place. But the nominees that we have here, we have 4 out of 5 of the Oscar nominees. We've got Navalny, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, Fire of Love, All That Breathes, and then one wildcard spot, which is Retrograde. Going off of what we know, the 4 times that these movies have matched up, and looking at some of the past picks that they've made here, they really like their very director-heavy movies. They really like when the director gets deep into the subject, when they really get in there, and that's why I'm going with All the Beauty and the Bloodshed. They don't care much for issue movies, so that's why I'm not putting Navalny in. That's why I'm not putting Retrograde in, because they don't care for that type of movie. They like auteur movies, and that is what All the Beauty and the Bloodshed is. I could also see this going to All That Breathes, though, because that is a very director-heavy movie.
All That Breathes is a movie all season long been saying, hey, this is going to show up everywhere. It's not going to win much. And it's kind of been doing that so far. So that leads All the Beauty and the Bloodshed and Fire of Love. And I'm leaning a little bit more towards Fire of Love. I know that we both doubted this movie all throughout the season. Like, this is the obvious miss. This is what's going to miss. It's stock footage, and it keeps just overcoming. And it wins a lot of the time, too. And I feel like this kind of blends the mold of like, hey, it's still about a sort of serious subject while also telling it in a kind of lighthearted mode. And it does have a different artistic vision because it's using found footage from the actual people that it's telling the story about while introducing new voiceover in a way that kind of it gels you into the story and then makes you feel super connected and invested by the end. So this may be kind of a weirder pick, kind of like the field pick I just had, but maybe I'm just all down for DGA kind of going crazy this year.
I'm going to pick Fire of Love on a different one, but this one I still feel very strong on All Beauty, but I could totally see Fire of Love happen. That would be pretty cool. That'd be a pretty cool pick for them. And I don't think that they're going to match up this year. I think that the lack of correlation, that 40% is going to hold up, where yeah, they're gonna miss one this year. But let's go to the next guild award right here, and this is the Art Directors Guild. This is for the production design category. These awards are also announced on February 18th, and this is one of the best predictors right here, because this one has 90% over the past 10 years. Now, that said, they do have 3 categories where that's spread across. But the only time that one of their winners has not gone on to win the Oscar has been in 2012 when they missed Lincoln winning the production design category and they picked Anna Karenina instead. But anyways, we've got our contemporary category. And in the past 10 years, the only winner that's come out of the contemporary category has been La La Land. And this year, we don't have any nominees that have come out of the contemporary category. So this one doesn't matter. But the ones here are Bardo, Bullet Train, Glass Onion, Top Gun, and Tar. Now, right off the bat, I'm picking Glass Onion. What are you picking, Dylan?
I'm picking Bardo.
Really?
Call
Why?
it a simp pick. Call it whatever you want. I just got a Bardo feeling right now, and I gotta show support for where it actually does show up. Glass Onion makes the most sense, but Glass Onion's underperformed a lot this season, and I think that may continue here at the Art Directors Guild. However, it's a smart choice. I kind of have a trend that we're doing here so far. I've picked almost a wild card pick in every category, and that's continuing here, but it will end in the next one that we talk about.
Well, what if they go with Top Gun or Tar, and they just go with the movie that they like the most?
See, I would not be super shocked because I think that both those movies have very good technicals, especially Top Gun Maverick. I think that would be a very inspired pick. However, I think Bardo would be an even more inspired pick.
And for me, I think Glass Onion would be an inspired pick. And that one was probably, if we were looking at this category at the Oscars, this was probably the closest one to getting in there. That's why I'm going with it, because I think Glass Onion, if there were 6 or 7 picks, it might have made it in there. So let's go on to the fantasy category. Now, in the past 10 years, there have been 3 winners to come out of this category right here. And the current nominees that we have, the only nominee in this category that is nominated at the Oscars is Avatar: The Way of Water.
Rightful winner. The rightful
winner.
winner.
Which is, we can agree, that's going to win. It's the only one here that's nominated at the Oscars. It's probably going to win this category. But the other nominees here are Black Panther, Everything Ever All at Once, Nope, and The Batman.
See, what I was saying is The Way of Water is the rightful winner for the Oscar for production design. That's the world that we should live in. We don't live in that world because we live in a world where our period winner is going to win our Oscar. And what Matt was saying is the overlap. Whoever wins this is going to win our Oscar because there's 2 movies here, both duking it out. In my eyes, one's 1A, one's 1B. I think that the one that most people have at 1A probably won't win, and I think most people's 1B is what actually is going to win.
Really? That's surprising. Okay, let's go into that. 5 of the winners in the past decade have come from here. So we've got All Quiet. We've got Babylon, Elvis, The Fabelmans, and White Noise. So 4 out of 5 of our nominees are in this category. I'm going to go with Babylon. I think that's the one that just makes the most sense. And if you're going to give Babylon a win anywhere, it's probably here. We've seen that with Critics' Choice. We both doubted it with Critics' Choice, but I think it's going to be here. And I know what you're going to pick, and I have an argument against it, but I will wait. What are you going to pick?
I don't feel confident with this because I think Babylon should win the Oscar. My issue with Babylon is that movie really going to win 2 Oscars? And that just seems weird for a movie like that. Like, yes, it could pull a Great Gatsby and like not get Best Picture, severely underperform a nomination money, and still win 2 tech awards. But Babylon doesn't seem that likable. I feel like I love the movie, but I feel like if the Academy loved it, it would show up somewhere else. And it didn't really show up many other places. And I think score seems pretty locked. But I mean, hey, score could be what it loses, and it still takes this. But I'm going with Elvis just because Elvis is the Best Picture nominee. It's the one it's got very showy production design. My issue with Elvis is if you look at all these nominees, you look at All Quiet, you can think of a place. You think of The Trenches. You look at Babylon, you can think of a lot of different scenes. You look at Fablemans. Hell, I can remember the battle scene. I can remember the Paramount lot. I think of Elvis. I think of stages. I think of Vegas. And while that's very well done, it's not very eye-catching, not very memorable. And I think that's the biggest knock against Elvis. It's not very memorable production design, but I feel like if you take stills, the stills will look really good. And I just think Elvis is a lot more likable of a movie. And I can see Elvis walking away with 3 Oscars, 4 Oscars. Really? I can't see Babylon walking away with 2. That just seems too much for that movie.
Okay, but here's the argument for Babylon. Like, I think it's more likely that it loses score than it loses production design because it is an old Hollywood movie. Look at the other movies in this category.
Those were in picture. They were liked.
Yeah, no, but still, Mank and Hollywood were both movies on the severe decline, and they still won this award.
They were Best Picture top 4s.
Walked away with it. Mank wasn't. By the end, Mank was not. But even I think, going back to Gatsby, which also won this category, or The Shape of Water, which also had that kind of movie theming to it. There was movie theaters in it. Gatsby has that sort of like old-timey party look. All of those movies, the thing that they have in common is that kind of like glorious, like, let's look at the old days. And Elvis just doesn't have that, you know? And like what you said about, I can't see Elvis being our win leader at the end of the night. I just can't see it. I can't see it taking like 4, 5 Oscars.
It pulls a bow wrap. But for Babylon, yes, its peak is pulling a Gatsby. It wins production design, and instead of winning costumes, it wins score. And you're probably right. It probably loses score, but I don't want to believe it loses score. Because if any of those other scores win, that is an Oscar travesty worth no other. And so I'm holding my heart out here saying like, hey, I'm willing to lose Babylon in production because, hey, yes, Making Hollywood may have been on the decline. They were still picture nominees. Shape of Water, 1 picture. Budapest was probably number 3 or 4 in picture. Gatsby is its best correlation. However, Gatsby was just a movie that was very liked. It just wasn't loved. Babylon's a movie that's loved, but it's also very hated. There wasn't a lot of people who hated Gatsby. Just people was like, okay, the movie isn't good, the texts are good. Babylon, the people who like don't like the movie still think the texts are bad, which is crazy to me. However, I think regardless, these are like 51-49, and take your pick. And the winner here is who you predict for the Oscar.
Like, I wouldn't say 51-49, but I would agree with you that whatever wins in the period category here is taking the Oscar, whether that's All Quiet, whether that's Babylon, whether that's Elvis, whether that's The Fabelmans. Let's go on to the next one, the Producers Guild Awards. These are happening on February 25th, and these ones have a 70% chance of overlapping. That's a pretty good correlation. 70% is not bad. But let's look at this year's nominees. We've got Avatar: The Way of Water, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Glass Onion, The Banshees of Inisherin, The Fabelmans, The Whale, Top Gun: Maverick, and Tar. So that's 70% correlation with winners. I am going to say I think that they're going to correlate again this year. I think that they're going to go for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But that said, I've heard a lot of people kind of guessing that they might go completely off track and go for one that's not really even in the conversation for the Oscar win. And Dylan, I think you're going to go with that one. What are you picking here?
I am, and it's Top Gun: Maverick because Producers Guild, as you've seen through the nominees here, they like movies that make money. Yes, Everything Everywhere was an amazing return on investment. I think, you can't quote me on this, I think it's the biggest return on investment for any movie that came out in the year. However, Maverick, it was a sensation. And you saw that with the nominees. The Whale was a movie that it made money for its budget. Black Panther did that. Avatar did that. Elvis did that. And Top Gun: Maverick did it as well. I think, honestly, I still think if Everything Everywhere wins this, it could still lose the Oscar, and that correlation
Ooh, I don't
goes
think so.
off. But I think it's just those two. Like I've seen people even say like Fablemans has a shot. No, it doesn't. Fablemans isn't even number 3. But it's Maverick or it's Everything Everywhere. I'm leaning Maverick. However, I like most of the people who say Maverick, they're pulling into it for the money reasons. But that's why I wanted to start off by saying Everything Everywhere has the same argument. Like it didn't make as much money, but on your budget, it made a good penny on its budget, and that's what the producers they like to see. They like to see money in the pockets.
Yes, Top Gun Maverick is the boomer pick. It's the one that's going to really appeal to those kind of like big money guys, the ones who are going to be the producers out there who they like their blockbusters. But that said, let's look at this past 10 years. How many times has a blockbuster won? We had Gravity win. I guess 1917 is the closest we've got to a Top Gun Maverick. But the trend I really see here correlates to Best Picture winners that feel like an idyllic version of what these producers want to be creating.
What
like
did they
last
go
year
with
with
last
Coda.
year? Oh, they went with Coda last year?
They went with Coda
Weird.
last year. They went with the
Okay,
tiny
They
indie.
do vote late. They do vote late. Okay.
They could have easily gone for Power of the Dog last year. They could have easily gone for any number of other movies. They went for the tiny indie. And I think it's because there's a certain bit of like idyllic values there where they're like, this is the type of movie that I wish I was making like 30 years ago. And that's the thing I feel about Everything Ever All at Once. It kind of represents those indie values that everyone wishes they could still represent, even though they're making the bigger movies at the moment. I think Everything Everywhere All at Once has the populist angle, but it also has that indie angle. It has that sort of Little Miss Sunshine vibe to it, which Little Miss Sunshine also won here.
I don't really think the winner of this really has much effect on the actual Oscar winner here. Like, I don't think Maverick winning this
I kinda
means Maverick's
do.
in the race still, and I don't think that Everything Everywhere wins this means like, hey, it's winning Best Picture. I think Everything Everywhere is going to come down to how does it do at BAFTA, as we talked about last week. However, I want to move us over to animated.
I so strongly disagree, though. I need to stop you there. I just stop you there because I think if Everything Everywhere doesn't win here, that's a huge hit for it in the race. If it does win here, if it wins here and SAG and possibly at DGA, that puts it so far ahead. So far ahead. I don't think BAFTA matters at all for Everything Everywhere, but I do think PGA matters because PGA will show if it's strong on a preferential ballot. But yes, let's hop over to animated. In animated, we've got Pinocchio, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Minions: The Rise of Gru, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and Turning Red. This has an 80% correlation. So 8 out of the past 10 years it has lined up. I think the only times that it didn't line up are when the Lego Movie was not nominated, and then I think they went with Wreck-It Ralph over Brave in 2012. Otherwise, they go with the front runner. So, what are they going with, Dylan?
The front runner is Pinocchio, and it is 80%. I'm not picking this, but if we're talking PGA, they like their dollar signs. Puss in Boots just crossed a historic mark the other day where it joined a collection of movies from last year that have remade over $10 million for like X amount of weeks. I think it was either 5 or 6. That list includes Top Gun Maverick, Avatar: The Way of Water, and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Puss in Boots is making a ton of money. It has a huge return on investment. I think it has a small angle here, but I'm still going with Pinocchio.
Pinocchio is the smart choice, but if Puss in Boots wins here, it could take it all the way to the Oscars. I know that would be your dream and my nightmare.
Yes. Yes.
And let's go on to the documentary category. This has a 50% correlation. So it's a better correlation than the DGA, but it's still not a great correlation. And the nominees that they have here, they have All That Breathes, Descendant, Fire of Love, Navalny, Nothing Compares, Retrograde, and The Territory. Now, the PGA, they kind of go more on the side of, like, while the DGA, they kind of go with the auteur documentaries, the PGA kind of goes with the populist choice. They were the first showing that My Octopus Teacher was a really strong contender for the Oscars. So I think that they're going to go with Navalny here, and I think that this is going to be the one guild that mirrors the Oscars.
You hit it right there, saying the populist choice. This is the populist movie of the bunch here. If this loses here, I don't think it wins the Oscar. I know it's a 50% correlation, so it's one of every two. However, I think this shows like, hey, people actually do like this. It's not just internet buzz. Like, hey, here's an award body giving it a populist award body. But I would not be surprised if Fire of Love wins here as well and just sweeps these big awards.
Let's go to the Costume Designers Guild. This happens also on February 25th. And this one has a 60% correlation, and it leans towards the period category just like the Art Directors Guild does. So let's go through the contemporary film category, where we have no overlap with the Oscars, just like in the production design category. So the nominees here are Glass Onion, Nope, Top Gun, Tar, and Women Talking. I think we can both agree here that Glass Onion was the closest in this category to getting an Oscar nomination, and that's the one that's going to win this category.
If they want to be inspired, Nope's right there. Nope has some good outfits, but pick Glass Onion.
So in the past 10 years, 2 of the winners that have come out of this category have gone on to win the Oscar. That's the fantasy category. So the nominees here this year are Avatar: The Way of Water, Black Panther 2, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Hocus Pocus 2, fucking LOL, and Thor: Love and Thunder. Of this category, in the fantasy category, we have 2 nominees here that are also nominated at the Oscars. Now, only one of these is win competitive at the Oscars, so I think it's got to be Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. They have to give this to Ruth Carter, but if it loses here, then I think it's just a walk-away, no contest win for Elvis.
This category we have Marvel movie sequel number 2, Marvel movie sequel number 3, Blue People sequel number 2, and Witches sequel number 2. But then you have Everything Everywhere All at Once, and that's my pick. It has no correlation with the actual sequels, but I'm going with the upset here because I don't think Black Panther has a shot to actually win the Oscar. I think it's a distant number 2 because Elvis has the Oscar in the bag here for costumes. This is the Catherine Martin win. Even if production design doesn't happen, this is the one that she's definitely getting at the Oscars, and that's winning in the period.
I'm going to say Black Panther wins here, at the very least. But Everything Everywhere would be the coolest goddamn win. It would be so cool if this won. But that would also make it a lock for the winner in our next category, which is the period category. And in the past 10 years, 4 winners have come out of this category right here. So the nominees are Babylon, Don't Worry Darling, Elvis, Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, and The Woman King. And I think we can both agree that Elvis wins here, and then Elvis most likely goes on to win the Oscar. All right, let's go to the Cinema Audio Society. This is a sound, obviously it's a sound award, but it's specifically about sound mixing, not sound editing. And in the past 10 years, we've had a weird thing going on where we combined 2 sound categories. Now, this award typically correlates much more with the sound mixing category rather than sound editing. Here's an interesting thing. It has a 60% correlation with both sound and editing. The nominees here are All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, Elvis, The Batman, and Top Gun Maverick, aka the exact same lineup that we have at the Oscars in the sound category. I think we can both agree here, though. This goes to Top Gun Maverick.
I would agree, and I think it's really interesting to look at what number 2 would be because I don't think Maverick loses, but Gold Derby would say All Quiet on the Western Front, which I think is a very weird thing to have at 2. I don't know.
I disagree. They like war movies. War movies are
do.
big in sound. 2019, 1917 won. I mean, Ford v. Ferrari got one category, and 1917 got the other category. So really, I think if we had a split sound, we could see All Quiet pick up sound editing while Top Gun got sound mixing. And because the correlation is so strong between this and the Oscars, we're probably going to see Top Gun carry it through to win both sound and editing at the Oscars based on this one.
I believe so too.
Now let's go to USC Scripters. This is an adapted screenplay award. Here we have a 60% correlation with the screenplay category, but that said, there's a lot of films that aren't eligible. But this year, the nominees here are Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Living, She Said, and Women Talking, because Top Gun Maverick withdrew its nomination here. So there are 4 nominees here, and I think we can both agree that Women Talking takes this hands down.
Women Talking's winning, like you just mentioned. It would be a 90% correlation probably if Coda, the father, and Black Klansman did show up. Or maybe not. It would probably be 80 because Black Klansman just didn't get nominated. So 80%. And Women Talking would continue that here because it's only, you could say, real competition withdrew its nomination. And I wouldn't even say it's real competition.
Now let's get to the actual editing award. I went over the Cinema Audio Society, which I said has a 60% correlation with the editing award. The actual American cinema editors, they only have a 40% correlation, and they have 2 shots every year. because they award a drama and a comedy prize, and still, even though they have had 20 shots in the past decade, they've only gotten 4 right. A lot of the time when they differentiate from the Oscars, it's because they don't go with the loud movie. In the past 20 wins, the past 10 years, the only 2 loud movies that won here were Dunkirk and Mad Max Fury Road. You might automatically go, hey, Top Gun Maverick is going to win the drama category here, but that's a loud movie. And, you can see in 2019, they went with Jojo Rabbit and Parasite. Ford v. Ferrari ended up taking the Oscar. Loud movie. Last year, they went with King Richard and Tick, Tick, Boom. Dune won the Oscar. Loud movie. In 2016, they went with La La Land and Arrival. What won the Oscar? Hacksaw Ridge. Loud movie. So, a lot of the time, they don't go with that loud movie. So let's go to drama. The nominees here are All Quiet on the Western Front, Elvis, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, and The Woman King. And I know immediately you're going to go, oh, it's Top Gun Maverick. But
No.
look at those stats. 40%, and they don't give it to the loud movie, which is why they're going to give it to Elvis.
Exactly. Ace, they're just looking for trouble. And Elvis, he's right there to give it to him.
This is going to be one of the few editing awards that Top Gun loses, and it's going to make people go, oh my God, could Top Gun lose the Oscar? Probably not. Probably not. But let's go to the comedy category, where I don't think we're going to get too brave here, because the nominees here are Everything Everywhere All at Once, Glass Onion, Banshees, The Menu, and Triangle. And Everything Everywhere All at Once, I think we can both agree, is going to take this one.
Question, though. I also have Everything Everywhere winning, but what if Banshees wins this and Maverick wins on the other side? Does that bring you back to saying, hey, Everything Everywhere can still win editing because, hey, it lost Ace, and Ace never goes correlating, and Maverick won?
I would be pretty shocked, actually, if it did, if Everything Everywhere All at Once lost here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Everything Everywhere All at Once just is kind of giving me, Jojo Rabbit, Parasite, that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So I'm not expecting it.
It makes sense. It's the clear one that you would feel like they would pick. It's clearly the most editing, but... It is the loudest movie of this bunch, but that's not in the drama category. This is over here in the comedy, so it may not have the same rules over here. But that's just a little hypothetical I want to show because, if they had that bad correlation and they still pick Maverick on the other side, but they don't go with Everything Everywhere, there's a possible slew in right there.
It's true. They do have a really bad correlation. But you know what? If they pick Top Gun Maverick, I still think Top Gun Maverick wins. It wouldn't change anything for me unless it lost Cinema Audio Society. If it lost Cinema Audio Society to All Quiet on the Western Front, immediately I go to Everything Everywhere All at Once for the winner. But let's go to the documentary category here. Now, this is the best correlation we have for documentary. There's an 80% correlation between these two. And actually, the only times that the American cinema editors have missed an editing win in the past decade, twice, have been for films that weren't nominated at the Oscars, because they picked Apollo 11 in 2019 over American Factory. Apollo 11 not nominated, and they picked in 2017 Jane over Icarus. Otherwise, they have picked every single time the winner. Let's look at the nominees here. There's All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, Fire of Love, Goodnight Oppie, Moon Age Daydream, and Navalny. What are you going with, Dylan?
So I like that stat because that's another chance for Goodnight Oppie to take home a victory, which we always love when the little robot can get some W's. But also, Moon Age Daydream makes so much more sense to be the movie to win here over Goodnight Oppie. But that 80% correlation with the winner, my winner of documentary is in this category, and that is Navalny. However, as I just mentioned, Fire of Love can easily just sweep the season. It takes DGA, it takes PGA, and it takes this one right here as well. I'm still leaning Navalny, but if we get to one of the first ones, if we get to DGA and Fire of Love wins there, then those last 2 picks after Navalny, I switch over to Fire of Love and just rock Fire of Love the rest of the way.
I'm kind of feeling Fire of Love here, even with the correlation, just because it feels like the reason why I diverged on those two with Apollo 11 and Jane, it wasn't because they were not nominated. It feels like it's because they were really strong archival docs. That could be the reason for Moon Age Daydream to win here as well. Moon Age Daydream could totally win because it's an archival doc with a lot of edited archival footage. Navalny doesn't feel like an editor's win. It doesn't. Fire of Love feels like an editor's win to me.
That phone call scene, though, That is editing at
Yes.
its finest.
That is a fantastic scene, fantastic editing. But Fire of Love is an editing achievement, especially if the team from Fire of Love has been pounding the ground and talking about it. They edited that film on an incredibly rushed timeline because they were trying to rush and beat Werner Herzog to the punch because he was making the same movie as them. But
right, I
I don't
did
know.
hear about that.
I'm going with Fire of Love here. But it could be Navalny. It could be Goodnight Oppie. It could be Moonage Daydream. It could be All the Beauty and the Bloodshed. It could be any of these movies. So really, your guess is as good as mine. But I have a feeling whatever wins here could take it to the Oscar. It really could.
Yeah, I think so as well. Even, obviously, unless it's Oppie or Daydream. So let's say that quick hypothetical here. Oppie or Daydream wins this. Do you think this affects the race at all for any of those other three movies just because they've lost it? More so?
Oppie, well, I'd say it affects it for Fire of Love because Fire of Love would need the editors behind it. It would need those editors. And maybe All the Beauty would be the same. I think it would show that All the Beauty doesn't have that sort of populist support. Navalny doesn't feel like one that really needs the editor's support for it because it's such a political documentary. And because, again, the movie I always compare it to is Icarus. It feels like Icarus to me, where that was a movie of the moment, and that's why it won. And Icarus lost here. So, really, Navalny, I don't think, if any of these doesn't need the win here, it's Navalny.
Fair enough.
So, let's head on to the animated category. Animated, 90% correlation here. 9 out of 10. And the only time that they got it wrong was when the Lego Movie was not nominated, and they picked the Lego Movie, which rightfully so, but every other time they've picked the winner. Nominees here, Pinocchio, Marcel, Puss in Boots, The Bad Guys, Turning Red. We can both agree it's Pinocchio.
Yes, unless, like we mentioned, the tide shifts and Puss in Boots becomes the movie of the moment, but I'm not predicting that until I see it happen.
And let's go to one of our last two. This is the ASC Awards, the American Society of Cinematographers. This happens on March 5th. This has a 70% correlation with the Oscars here. And we saw this lineup was a disaster when we first saw it, and we were like, oh my god, how is that going to translate to the Oscars? And then it translated in a weirder way than we ever expected. The nominees they have this year are Bardo, Elvis, Empire of Light, The Batman, and Top Gun Maverick. Now, I'm going to say one, and I know you're going to disagree because it's not nominated for the Oscar, but I think that they're going to go with Top Gun Maverick.
Maverick makes sense because that's what everyone's been picking. However, I like that trend of the movie at least has to be nominated. However, there's another movie in here which I have winning the Oscar, so I feel like it kind of needs to win this. So I don't really know what to do here. What I do know is it's not The Batman and it's not Empire of Light. It's one of the other three, and it's just which one do I want to go with? Because Bardo makes the most sense based on the other winners when it doesn't correlate with the Oscars. Elvis makes most sense if they're just trying to predict the Oscar, and Maverick makes most sense if they just want to do their own thing.
I guess my thing is that I think All Quiet is winning the Oscar, and it's not nominated here. So if the winner at the Oscars is something that's not nominated here, why can't the winner here be something that's not nominated at the Oscars?
That's possible. I just don't buy All Quiet winning anything outside of international feature, but that's a discussion for another day.
Let's move on to the Writers Guild Awards. This is going to be the last one that we talk about today. This is happening on March 5th, 1 week before the Oscars. And let's get into the adapted category. The adapted category here has a 60% correlation. There's a huge amount of films that don't qualify here because you have to be a WGA member in order to qualify. If The Father was here, if 12 Years a Slave was here, if Moonlight was here, we'd probably have a 90% correlation with this. And this year, we have nominees being Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Glass Onion, She Said, Top Gun Maverick, and Women Talking. I think we can both agree here. It's Women Talking. So then let's get into the original category here. The original category, there's a lot of eligibility issues on this one, is what I'm going to say. But there's a 50% correlation here between this and the Oscars. But the nominees we have right now are Everything Everywhere All at Once, Nope, Fabelmans, The Menu, and Tar. What's not here? The Banshees of Inisherin. So ultimately, I think we can agree that Everything Everywhere All at Once wins here. But it still leaves a question mark to me for the Oscar because Banshees is not here.
I'm still leaning Banshees for the Oscar. So Everything Everywhere sounds good to me because that 50% stays regardless, whether it's this or whether it is Banshees. Circle back. We basically bookend this whole segment. Everything Everywhere All at Once, I don't think can win picture, director, and screenplay. I don't think it's going to win all three. So it's going to win two. If it's winning picture, it's winning one of the other two. And I feel like this is probably the harder one than director. But how the tables look right now, I feel like this is the easier one to win than director. So I picked Field earlier, even though I still think Daniels are probably going to win director at the Oscars. However, I'm picking Everything Everywhere here, and I think Banshees is going to win the Oscar because McDonagh is his time to get an award. He's been looked over for too long. I feel like they can't pass him up again. They passed him up for Get Out last time, and Everything Everywhere All at Once is kind of that same type of different type of genre movie that's going to overtake him again, and it just feels too much of the same. And I don't know. I know that there's been times in the past, like Birdman, as we mentioned before, that does just sweep. It takes all three. I just don't know if it's going to happen this year, and Parasite as well. But neither of those movies won an acting prize. This movie's winning at least one, if not two. So that then bodes the question, like, is it really going to win 4, 5 above the lines? And that just seems too much to me. So I think it's going to falter either here or director at the Oscars. Just does it falter on the path there is the question.
But that brings us to the end of our guild predictions. That was a lot to go over. I think my takeaway here is I just think you're predicting Elvis for too many awards. You've got it winning actor, cinematography, costumes, and you think it's the spoiler for production design. It's not winning 4 awards.
I think it's 3 at minimum. So, yeah, actor, makeup, that's 2. And then either production or cinematography brings it to 3. And then maybe both can bring it to 4. So I think 4 is a pretty safe spot because that's what Bohemian Rhapsody, I think, won as well. Could be wrong.
Yeah, but it won 2 sound awards.
See, Bohemian Rhapsody could have also won makeup.
I don't know. I still think you're over predicting it. I really think it just gets makeup, costumes, and I think that's a good winning package for it.
We'll see. We have, like you mentioned, a lot of guilds coming up, so they can either boost Elvis up or bring him down to the ground.
But let us know what you think in the comments down below. Let us know if any of these awards you can see go in a different way, or if you think that we're just complete idiots and we're wrong about everything. Let us know right down below. But as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. My name is Matt.
And my name is Dyl, and this is Fantasy Filmball.